There are exactly 3 things in this universe that will cause a Vrixian safety inspector to faint on the spot. The first is paperwork filed incorrectly. The second is paperwork filed correctly but in the wrong color ink. The third is watching a sentient species walk around a Class 12 death world wearing nothing but textile shorts and foam footwear. Inspector Kvalix had just experienced all 3 simultaneously. The Galactic Environmental Hazard Assessment Bureau, or as everyone called it, the bureau that makes sure you don't die horribly, had been cataloguing dangerous planets for 8,000 years. They had perfected the art of bureaucratic survival. 32 different forms for atmospheric entry, 19 separate permits for breathing, and absolutely positively, under no circumstances whatsoever, were you allowed to set foot on a Class 12 death world without a Type 9 environmental protection suit, which was essentially a tank you could walk in. Class 12 death worlds were the stuff of nightmares. Planets so hostile, so absolutely determined to kill you in creative ways that even thinking about them required a waiver. The Bureau had recorded exactly 14 Class 12 planets in the entire galaxy. All of them were quarantined. All of them were marked with the universal symbol for "Are you insane?" And then they found number 15. The planet's designation was Terra, though the initial survey team had nicknamed it the Torture Sphere. The report made veteran inspectors weep. Oxygen levels high enough to cause metal to rust, a universal solvent called water covering 70% of the surface, gravity that would crush most species' skeletal systems into paste, radiation from the local star intense enough to damage DNA, and microscopic organisms, billions of them, on every single surface, just waiting to invade your body and dissolve you from the inside out. But wait, there was more. The planet experienced regular atmospheric disturbances called weather that could kill you in 17 different ways. Frozen water falling from the sky, liquid water falling hard from the sky, electrical plasma discharges with millions of volts, wind moving fast enough to pick up entire structures and throw them around like toys, and the temperature, oh sweet stars, the temperature swinging from freeze to death to cook to death depending on which side of the planet you were standing on and what time of day it was. The survey team had filed their report from orbit, refusing to get any closer. They recommended immediate quarantine and suggested adding a new classification, Class 13, specifically for Terra, because Class 12 somehow didn't capture the pure hostility of this nightmare world. The Bureau approved the quarantine unanimously. Case closed, planet marked, move along. That should have been the end of it. 3 months later, junior analyst Thremix was reviewing orbital surveillance data, as was protocol for all quarantined death worlds. You had to make sure no one was stupid enough to try landing on them. Thremix was good at his job, which meant he was phenomenally boring and followed every single rule with religious devotion. He had personally filed 638 incident reports about improper font usage. He was reviewing the thermal scan data from Terra's surface, documenting the various ways the planet was trying to kill itself, when he noticed something peculiar. Geometric patterns. Very regular geometric patterns that looked suspiciously like structures. Thremix stared at his screen for approximately 11 minutes, which was exactly how long it took for his training to override his brain's desperate attempt to deny what he was seeing. "No," he whispered to himself. "No, no, 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 no." He ran the scans again. Same results. Enhanced the resolution. Worse results. The patterns weren't just structures, they were cities. Massive, sprawling, organized collections of buildings, roads, infrastructure, which could only mean one thing: someone was living there, on a Class 12 death world, without authorization. Thremix did what any reasonable bureaucrat would do when faced with the impossible. He filed a report and immediately took a sick day. Let someone else deal with that insanity. The report landed on Inspector Kvalix's desk 3 days later, After passing through 6 different departments, being stamped with 18 different approval seals, and being translated into 5 languages because no one could believe what they were reading. Kvalix was a Vrixian, which meant he had 4 arms, compound eyes, and an exoskeleton that turned slightly purple when he was stressed. By the time he finished reading the report, he was practically violet. "Get me a ship," he said to his assistant. "Get me a team, and get me every single piece of environmental protection equipment we have in storage. We're going to Terra." "Sir, the report says there might be a civilization down there." "I know what the report says." Kvalix's mandibles clicked together anxiously. "Which means someone has violated approximately 800 safety regulations, and I need to issue citations immediately." His assistant, a young Peluvian named Rix, tentatively raised one of her 4 tentacles. "Sir, if there's a civilization on a Class 12 death world, doesn't that mean they might have, incredible technology, advanced protection systems we don't know about?" Kvalix considered this. It made sense. The only way anyone could survive on Terra would be with technology so advanced it made their own equipment look like children's toys. Probably force fields that could repel the hostile environment. Maybe matter reconfigurators that constantly rebuilt damaged tissue. Certainly something impressive. "You're right," he said finally. "They must have adaptive environmental shielding we haven't even theorized yet. This could be the most important first contact in galactic history. Should we bring weapons, sir, in case they're hostile?" "Weapons? Rix, any species capable of surviving on that planet could probably destroy us by thinking too hard. No, we bring gifts. Specifically, we bring them properly filed paperwork welcoming them to the galactic community. In triplicate." The expedition team assembled over the next 2 weeks. They brought 6 environmental specialists, 3 xenobiologists, 2 diplomatic attachés, and Kvalix, who brought 34 different forms that might be relevant to the situation. They loaded their ship with the finest Type 9 environmental protection suits, each one worth more than a small moon, and capable of keeping you alive in the heart of a star for up to 3 minutes. The journey to Terra took 5 days. During that time, Kvalix reviewed everything they knew about the planet, which wasn't much, and everything they could theorize about the civilization living there, which was pure speculation. "They must be utterly fearless," said Vremik, the senior xenobiologist, a Corthaxian with too many eyes and not enough common sense, "to choose to live on such a world." "Or desperate," offered Pelix, one of the diplomatic attachés. "Perhaps they're refugees from a catastrophic war." "Or insane," muttered Rix, who had been reading medical journals about Deathworld exposure. "The psychological impact alone would be devastating." Kvalix wasn't listening. He was too busy checking and rechecking the integrity of his environmental suit. The manual said it could withstand Class 12 conditions for up to 6 hours. He was planning to be on the surface for no more than 20 minutes. Any civilization advanced enough to live there would surely have controlled environments where they could conduct meetings safely. They entered Terra's orbit on a morning according to the planet's rotation. The ship's sensors went absolutely berserk. "Sir, I'm detecting millions of life signs on the surface." Rix's voice was shaking, "concentrated in the urban areas." "Millions?" Kvalix turned purple again. "How is that even possible?" "And sir, I'm detecting vehicles, thousands of them, moving along the roads. But I'm not reading any environmental protection fields around them. That can't be right. Run the scan again." Rix ran it again. Same results. She ran it 16 more times because she couldn't believe what she was seeing. The readings were clear. Whatever was down there was moving around the surface of a Class 12 death world with no apparent protection whatsoever. "Maybe their shields are just too advanced for our sensors to detect," suggested Vremik hopefully. "Maybe," Kvalix said, though he didn't sound convinced. "All right, we're going down. Everyone in your suits. Triple-check your seals. If anything feels wrong, you beam back to the ship immediately. Is that clear?" Everyone nodded frantically. They selected a landing site on the outskirts of one of the smaller urban centers, a place the initial survey had labeled Coastal Settlement Designation 43. The ship descended slowly, sensors screaming warnings about atmospheric corrosion, dangerous oxygen levels, and something called pollen that apparently existed in massive quantities and might be weaponized spores. The landing was smooth, the ramp extended. Galactic, sealed inside his Type 9 suit, took his first step onto Terra. He immediately wished he hadn't. The noise! The planet was screaming at him, wind rushing past, carrying unknown particles, sounds from the nearby settlement, mechanical growls and inexplicable rhythmic vibrations. And something else, something organic, high-pitched calls from small flying creatures that swooped overhead. "Those are predators!" Fremik's voice crackled over the communicator. "Aerial predators scanning us for weaknesses." "Stay calm," Galactic ordered, though he was anything but. "They can't penetrate our suits." "Probably. Let's move toward the settlement, slowly, carefully, and for the love of all that's properly filed, don't touch anything." The team moved like a group of elderly tortoises having an anxiety attack. Every step was calculated, every sensor reading was analyzed. The settlement was approximately 800 meters away, a collection of structures made from processed wood and some kind of artificial stone. Primitive by galactic standards, but the mere fact that they existed on this planet was miraculous. They were halfway to the settlement when Rix stopped dead in her tracks. "Sir," she whispered over the communicator. "Sir, there's something moving on the path ahead." Everyone froze. Galactic enhanced his visual senses and felt his internal organs try to escape through his breathing passages. There was a creature walking toward them. It was bipedal, roughly 1.8 meters tall, with only 2 arms and 2 legs, which seemed like a terrible evolutionary design. Its skin was exposed, completely exposed, to the hostile environment. No scales, no protective carapace. Just soft, vulnerable flesh wrapped in minimal textile coverings. Specifically, the creature was wearing fabric shorts that ended above the knee joint, a sleeveless textile top, and primitive rubber footwear that offered absolutely no environmental protection whatsoever. And it was jogging, running, for fun, on a Class 12 Deathworld, breathing the corrosive oxygen directly into its respiratory system, its skin glistening with moisture as it expelled excess heat through the insane process of deliberately leaking fluid through its pores. The creature had small acoustic devices inserted in its auditory canals and appeared to be, and Galactic could barely process this, enjoying itself. "What in the name of properly filed safety documentation is that?" Galactic screamed into his communicator. The creature noticed them. It slowed its pace, pulled the acoustic devices from its ears, and stopped completely. Then, and this was somehow worse, it smiled at them. It smiled, baring its teeth in what the translation matrix helpfully informed him was a gesture of friendliness. Those were calcium deposits designed for tearing flesh, and it was just showing them like it was perfectly normal. The creature raised one hand in a gesture of greeting. "Hey there," it called out, its voice carrying easily through the toxic atmosphere. "You guys look like you're having some trouble with those suits. First time on Earth?" Earth, the local name for Terra. Galactic filed that information away automatically because even in the face of the impossible, bureaucratic training never failed. "You," Galactic managed to say, his translator working overtime, "you're not wearing any protective equipment." The creature looked down at itself, then back at them, confusion evident on its face. Yeah, it's like 25 degrees out. Perfect weather for a run." It wiped sweat from its forehead with casual disregard for the millions of bacteria that transaction involved. "Are you guys okay in those suits? You look kind of stressed." "Stressed? Stressed? You're walking around a Class 12 Deathworld in textile shorts." "Class 12? What now?" The creature tilted its head. "Look, If you're tourists, there's a visitor center about a mile that way. They can help you out. I'd walk you there myself, but I'm trying to do 10K before breakfast. It started jogging in place, apparently unable to remain still even during conversation. I'm Rick, by the way, Rick Palmerton. Welcome to Santa Barbara. Rick Palmerton, Santa Barbara. Kavalix's data recorder was capturing everything, even as his brain was refusing to process it. You're jogging, Rick said weakly. Voluntarily. Yeah, training for a half marathon next month. Rick grinned again, somehow proud of planning to run even more on this death sphere. Anyway, I gotta keep moving or I'll lose my pace. You folks need anything, just head into town. People are real friendly around here. And with that, Rick Palmerton, wearing shorts and exuding terrifying cheerfulness, continued his jog past a group of galactic representatives in multi-million credit environmental suits, waving once more before putting his acoustic devices back in and disappearing down the path. The expedition team stood in silence for approximately 90 seconds. Then Vremik fainted, which was impressive, considering his suit was holding him upright. "Did that just happen?" Pelix whispered. "According to my senses, yes," Rix replied, her voice hollow. "And according to my senses, he was healthy, thriving even. His vital signs were excellent." Kavalix's mind was racing. This changed everything. This changed all of it. The entire Bureau's understanding of environmental hazards was based on the principle that Class 12 Deathworlds were unsurvivable without extreme protection. But this Rick creature, this jogger, had just strolled past them like they were the weird ones. "We need to get to that settlement," Kavalix said finally. "We need answers. Now." They revived Vremik, who spent 5 minutes apologizing for his unprofessional conduct and continued toward Santa Barbara. The closer they got, the more their senses detected and the more their sanity eroded. There were hundreds of these creatures, walking around, sitting on outdoor furniture, riding primitive mechanical transportation with 2 wheels that offered no protection whatsoever. Small versions of the creatures, obviously juveniles, were running around in an open area, screaming with joy as they kicked a spherical object back and forth. "They're exposing their children to this environment." Vremik sounded like he might faint again. That's child endangerment. There are protocols." But the creatures didn't seem concerned. If anything, they looked happy, relaxed, content. The team reached what appeared to be a main thoroughfare. Structures lined both sides with transparent openings showing the interiors. Some sold food, some sold clothing, some sold what appeared to be decorative items with no survival purpose whatsoever. A small juvenile creature ran up to them, eyes wide with excitement. "Whoa, are you aliens?" the juvenile shouted. "That's so cool. Are those real spacesuits? Can you breathe fire? Do you have laser guns?" A larger creature, presumably a parental unit, hurried over and gently pulled the juvenile back. "Megan, honey, don't bother the visitors. I'm so sorry about that," the parental unit said to them, smiling apologetically. "We don't get many off-worlders here. Are you folks lost?" The embassy in Los Angeles is usually where galactic visitors check in first. Embassy. Los Angeles. These creatures had been in contact with the galactic community? "How?" Kavalix said slowly. "How are you surviving out here without environmental protection?" The parental unit looked confused. "Environmental protection from what? It's a beautiful day. Sun's out, ocean breeze is perfect. Though I guess if you're from a different climate, our weather might feel weird to you." She fanned herself with one hand. "I hear Vrixians prefer it cooler. Must be rough in those suits. Your planet is classified as Class 12. 12! The most hostile rating we have. The atmosphere is corrosive. The gravity is crushing. The microorganisms are everywhere." The parental unit blinked. "Oh, yeah, I guess we do have a pretty robust ecosystem. But hostile? Sir, this is Southern California. The worst thing that might happen today is someone getting a sunburn because they forgot to wear sunscreen." She noticed their confusion and sighed. "Look, Why don't you come to the community center? We can sit down, have some lemonade, and I can try to explain. I'm Jennifer, by the way. Jennifer Ashworth. This is my daughter Megan." The juvenile waved enthusiastically, clearly not understanding that her very existence was causing existential crises across the team. They followed Jennifer Ashworth to what she called the community center, a structure made primarily of wood and glass that offered essentially no protection from the environment. Inside, the temperature was slightly cooler, but the air was still the same toxic oxygen mixture. There were dozens of creatures inside, most wearing minimal clothing, engaged in various activities. One corner had elderly creatures sitting at tables, moving small decorated tiles around in what appeared to be a recreational game. Another area had juvenile creatures engaged in what the translation matrix called arts and crafts. Someone was playing a musical instrument, filling the space with harmonic vibrations. It was, in every sense, normal. Horrifyingly, terrifyingly, inexplicably normal. Jennifer led them to a seating area and offered them something called lemonade, which was apparently a beverage made from acidic fruit and water. The team declined, unable to consume anything through their suits anyway. "Okay," Jennifer said, sitting down comfortably in a chair that would have collapsed under Kvalix's suit weight. "So you're clearly new to Earth, and someone gave you some really bad information about our planet. Yes, we have oxygen in our atmosphere. We kind of need it to live. Yes, we have bacteria and other microorganisms everywhere. They're mostly helpful, and the ones that aren't, well, we have immune systems for that. And gravity?" She bounced slightly in her seat. "This is just normal gravity for us. We evolved here. You evolved here." Pelix leaned forward so quickly his suit servos whined. "You're native to this death world." "Death world?" Jennifer frowned. "That's kind of harsh. I mean, sure, we've got some dangerous weather sometimes. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, the occasional wildfire. But we've learned to deal with them, build better structures, early warning systems, common sense mostly." Rix was frantically taking notes. "Your species evolved to survive these conditions naturally, without technological adaptation." "Well, yeah, I mean, we invented air conditioning, which is nice, and houses and clothing for when it gets cold. But fundamentally, yeah, we're built for Earth." Jennifer paused. "Wait, what conditions are you evolved for? Your home planets must be pretty different." And that's when the team realized the horrible truth. The problem wasn't that humans had amazing technology that protected them from terror. The problem was that terror wasn't a death world to them. It was home. They were designed for it. Every aspect of their biology was perfectly calibrated to survive, no, to thrive in conditions that would kill almost every other known species in the galaxy. They weren't wearing minimal protection. They weren't wearing any protection, because they didn't need it. Kvalix felt his worldview collapsing like a star going supernova. 8,000 years of Bureau protocols, 32 forms for atmospheric entry, 19 permits for breathing. All of it based on the fundamental assumption that Class 12 death worlds were uninhabitable. And these creatures, these humans, were treating it like a casual vacation destination. Jennifer was still talking. "I mean, I guess compared to some planets, Earth is a bit intense. My cousin visited a Peluvian colony world last year and said it was super boring. No weather at all, just perfect conditions 24/7. She said it was like living inside a climate-controlled box. Came home early because she missed storms." "She missed storms?" Vremic sounded faint again. "Your species enjoys atmospheric disturbances?" "Some people do," Jennifer shrugged. "Storm watching is a pretty popular hobby, and surfing, of course, can't surf without waves." "Surfing," Kvalix repeated numbly. "Yeah, you ride ocean waves on a board. It's super fun. My brother does it every weekend. Says there's nothing like catching a perfect wave. Your species deliberately interacts with the universal solvent for recreational purposes." Jennifer's smile faltered slightly. Are you guys okay? You seem really stressed about normal things. Did someone tell you Earth was dangerous or something? Your planet is classified as the most hostile environment in the known galaxy. Kavalix's voice was rising. Your atmosphere corrodes metal. Your water dissolves organic compounds. Your gravity would crush most species. Your star emits radiation that damages DNA. And you're telling me your brother surfs in the universal solvent for fun. Jennifer was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then she started laughing. She laughed. "Oh my God," she managed between giggles. "Is that why you're all in those massive suits? Someone told you Earth was dangerous? Oh, that's hilarious. Who classified us? The same people who rate restaurants. Did we get like 5 skull and crossbones out of 5? This isn't funny," Kavalix protested. "We have protocols, safety regulations. 8,000 years of Bureau experience says your planet should be quarantined." Jennifer wiped tears from her eyes, moisture leaking from her optical organs in response to amusement, which was somehow even more unsettling. "Look, I get it. Different species, different normal, right? But I promise you, Earth isn't trying to kill anyone. Well, except mosquitoes. We could do without mosquitoes. Those things are genuinely annoying." "Mosquitoes?" Rix queried her database. "Small flying organisms that consume blood from larger creatures?" "Yep. They're the worst, but we've got bug spray for that. You're more concerned about small flying pests than atmospheric corrosion. I mean, the flying pests actually bother you. Atmospheric corrosion isn't really a thing we worry about day to day." Jennifer stood up. "Tell you what, why don't I show you around town, let you see that we're doing just fine. Maybe it'll help you relax a bit. You all seem really tense." Tense. They were tense because their entire understanding of environmental safety was being demolished by a cheerful human in casual clothing who thought their concerns were funny, but they followed her. What else could they do? Jennifer led them outside, pointing out various features of Santa Barbara with obvious pride. The ocean in the distance, glittering under the radiation of Terra's star, mountains covered in vegetation, living plants that somehow thrived in the toxic atmosphere, streets filled with humans going about their daily routines with absolutely no sense of the danger they should be in. They passed a location where humans were sitting at outdoor tables, consuming food and beverages while fully exposed to the environment. "That's my favorite cafe," Jennifer said. "Best coffee in town, and their pastries are to die for." To die for. She used a death metaphor to describe baked goods. A human male jogged past them, wearing even less clothing than Rick Palmerton had, his skin exposed to dangerous solar radiation, breathing heavily as he pushed his cardiovascular system to its limits for no apparent survival reason. "Hey, Jennifer!" he called out, waving. "Hey, Marcus!" she called back. Kavalix's data recorder noted the name automatically. Marcus. Not relevant to anything except his brain's desperate attempt to maintain some sense of order. They reached an open area near the ocean where dozens of humans were engaged in various activities. Some were lying on the sand, deliberately exposing themselves to solar radiation. Others were in the water, the universal solvent, splashing and swimming like it wasn't a substance that could dissolve organic matter given enough time. "Beach day," Jennifer said happily. "Isn't it gorgeous? Temperature's perfect, water's warm, barely any waves. Great day for swimming." "They're in the water," Pelix squeaked, "voluntarily, completely submerged." "Well, yeah, it's the ocean. That's kind of the point." Jennifer kicked off her shoes and wiggled her toes in the sand. "You guys should try it. Might help you cool off in those suits." "Absolutely not!" Kvalix backed away from the water like it was going to attack him. "That substance has a pH that would damage our equipment." "Salt water is a bit rough on electronics," Jennifer agreed. "But it's fine for us. We're like 70% water ourselves. We're basically walking water balloons with delusions of grandeur." She said this like it was amusing instead of horrifying. A small, juvenile human ran up to them, holding something in its tiny hands. Look, I found a crab. It was holding a predator, a creature with claws, and it was smiling. Jennifer crouched down. Oh, that's a big one. Be careful with his claws, sweetie. Remember, we're gentle with ocean friends. I know. The juvenile showed them the crab proudly. Isn't he cool? I'm going to put him back so he can go home. The juvenile ran toward the water, released the predator back into its natural habitat, and splashed around in the shallows for a moment before running back to its parental unit. Normal. This was all normal to them. Kavalix had experienced approximately 17 different types of nervous breakdown in the last 2 hours. His carefully organized worldview, built on thousands of years of galactic safety protocols, had been completely shattered by humans in shorts acting like their nightmare planet was a pleasant vacation destination. I need, he said slowly, to speak with your planetary leadership. Immediately. There are forms that need to be filed, classifications that need to be revised, 8,000 years of Bureau protocol that need to be completely rewritten. Jennifer pulled out a small electronic device from her pocket. A pocket! She had a pocket in her textile shorts where she stored vulnerable electronics. Sure, I can make some calls, though I gotta warn you it's Saturday. Most government offices are closed. Might have to wait until Monday. Monday? This is a matter of galactic importance. Yeah, but it's still the weekend, dude. Jennifer shrugged. Look, why don't you guys find a hotel, get some rest, and I'll help you navigate the bureaucracy on Monday. Trust me, dealing with human government agencies, you're gonna wish you were back to dealing with hostile environments. She said this with such casual certainty that Kavalix almost believed her. The team retreated to their ship, everyone frantically compiling reports and trying to make sense of what they'd witnessed. Kavalix started drafting a priority communication to the Bureau, but every sentence he wrote sounded insane. Dear Bureau leadership, humans don't wear pants, and they're fine with it. Sincerely, Inspector Kavalix. No, that wouldn't work. Dear Bureau leadership, our entire classification system is wrong, and we're all idiots. Sincerely, Inspector Kavalix. Also, no. He tried 16 different versions before giving up and just sending the raw sensor data with a note that said, "Please advise immediately," in capital letters, because if there was ever a time for capital letters, this was it. The response came back in 6 hours, which was record time for the Bureau. Normally they took 3 weeks to respond to anything. Inspector Kavalix, are you experiencing equipment malfunction or mental breakdown? Please clarify. Your data appears to show sentient beings surviving Class 12 conditions without protection. This is impossible. Run full diagnostic and resubmit. He ran the diagnostic. Twice. Equipment was fine, except for his faith in galactic bureaucracy, which was thoroughly broken. He sent back a longer report, including video footage of Rick Palmerton jogging, Jennifer Ashworth laughing, and the juvenile with the crab. He added testimony from all team members. He attached medical scans showing human vital signs. He included atmospheric analysis proving that yes, they were on Terra, and yes, the humans were completely unprotected. The Bureau's response took 3 days. Emergency session called. Return to headquarters immediately for debriefing. Do not make contact with local government. This situation is now classified Level 1 priority. Level 1 priority was reserved for things like the universe is ending, or someone filed paperwork in pen instead of the approved digital format. The fact that humans existing warranted Level 1 priority told Kavalix exactly how seriously the Bureau was taking this, but Jennifer had promised to help him contact human leadership on Monday, and Kavalix was nothing if not a professional. He couldn't just leave without properly documenting first contact and following appropriate protocol. So he went back to Santa Barbara on Monday morning, full environmental suit activated, prepared to face the bureaucratic nightmare of human government agencies. Jennifer met him at the community center, holding 2 cups of something steaming. "Morning! Brought you coffee. Oh, wait, you can't drink through that suit, can you? I'll just drink both then. No problem. She consumed hot, caffeinated beverages like it was normal. The liquid was probably toxic to 17 species, and she just drank it. I made some calls, Jennifer said between sips. Got you a video conference with a representative from the State Department. They handle extraterrestrial relations. Well, they handle a lot of things, but ET stuff is part of it. Fair warning, though, the guy I talked to seemed really confused about why you needed to reclassify Earth. Apparently, we've been in contact with the Galactic community for like 5 years now. 5 years. How? Kvalik said weakly. How did we not know about this? Different departments, I guess. The State Department said they registered Earth with some galactic registry, filled out a bunch of forms, got approved for limited trade agreements. Honestly, I don't follow galactic politics much. Too complicated. Jennifer finished her coffee and grabbed her electronic device. Ready? The call's in 10 minutes. I set it up in the library because it's quieter there. The library was another structure offering minimal environmental protection, filled with physical books, which were apparently how humans stored information before digital systems. Humans who liked touching things made of processed tree matter that could contain any number of harmful organisms. The video conference connected exactly on time, showing a human male in formal attire sitting at a desk with flags behind him. Good morning, Inspector Kvalik. I'm Deputy Director Hammond from the State Department's Office of Extraterrestrial Affairs. I understand you have concerns about Earth's planetary classification. Concerns? Kvalik's voice went up 3 octaves. Your species is living on a Class 12 death world without protection. This violates every safety protocol in the Galactic database. We need to immediately reclassify your planet and establish proper safety guidelines for any species visiting Terra. Deputy Director Hammond looked confused. Class 12 death world. Inspector, we registered 5 years ago as a Class 6 garden world. We submitted all the proper documentation, atmospheric composition, gravity levels, biodiversity reports. Everything was approved. Class 6, your planet has corrosive oxygen levels. Oxygen is only corrosive to species who don't breathe it, Hammond said patiently. For us, it's kind of essential, and our levels are perfectly normal for an oxygen-based ecosystem. 21%, standard stuff. Your water dissolves organic compounds. Water is a solvent, yes, but it's also what we're made of. We need it to survive. I'm not sure what the problem is here. Kvalik felt like he was arguing with a wall made of incomprehension and casual disregard for safety. Rix, who had been reviewing databases frantically, made a small noise of discovery. Sir, I found the registration. Earth was classified as Class 6 5 years ago, but it was processed by the Department of Habitable Planets, not the Environmental Hazard Bureau, 2 completely different agencies. What? Kvalik rounded on his assistant. We have different agencies classifying planets? Apparently, the Habitable Planets Department handles worlds suitable for colonization. They use a completely different rating system. Class 6 means suitable for most oxygen-breathing species with minor adaptation. It's basically the opposite of Class 12 in the Death World classification. Kvalik's mind was reeling. Bureaucracy had struck again. 2 different departments, 2 different classification systems, both rating the same planet. Deputy Director Hammond was nodding along. Right, we worked with the Habitable Planets folks. They were very helpful. Did mention that our gravity was a bit high for some species and recommended we install mobility assistance in major cities for visitors. We've got that sorted now. Most Earth cities have hover platform rentals for species who find our gravity uncomfortable. Your gravity crushes most species. It's 1 standard G. That's literally the definition of standard. Maybe your measuring system is different. Hammond pulled up something on his screen. According to the documentation we have, galactic standard gravity is based on a composite average of major spacefaring species. Earth's gravity is about 15% higher than that average, which some species find tiring but hardly crushing. We've had thousands of extraterrestrial visitors over the past 5 years. None of them died. Thousands of visitors, while the Environmental Hazard Bureau had Terra marked as quarantined. Who? Kvalix asked in a very quiet voice. Who authorized those visits? The Galactic Tourism Board. They approved Earth for limited tourism 3 years ago after we passed safety inspections. We're quite popular, actually, especially our beaches. Apparently, most planets don't have oceans, so it's a novel experience. Hammond smiled. We've had some complaints about the sun being too bright and the food being too spicy, but overall, reviews have been positive. Kvalix was going to need so much therapy after this. Let me get this straight, he said slowly. Earth has been in contact with the galactic community for 5 years. You've been classified as a habitable world. You've had thousands of visitors. You have trade agreements. And my bureau, the Environmental Hazard Assessment Bureau, had no idea about any of this? Hammond looked sympathetic. Sounds like an interdepartmental communication issue. We get that a lot in human government too. Left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Super frustrating. This is a disaster. We've been telling species to avoid Terra because we thought it was uninhabitable. We have it marked as quarantined with the universal symbol for "Are you insane?" on all the charts. Ah, Hammond winced. That might explain why we haven't had any Vrixian tourists. Shame, really. I think you folks would enjoy San Francisco. Great food scene, lots of culture. I'm wearing a tank I can walk in because I thought your atmosphere would kill me. That suit does look really uncomfortable, Hammond agreed. Must be hot in there. It's 28 degrees today. Perfect beach weather. Jennifer, who had been watching this exchange with growing amusement, finally spoke up. So basically, you guys thought Earth was super dangerous, but we've actually been hanging out with other aliens for years, and nobody told you. Apparently, Kvalix wanted to file 17 incident reports, but had no idea where to start. That's hilarious, Jennifer grinned. Very on brand for bureaucracy. Human or alien, red tape is universal. Deputy Director Hammond cleared his throat. Inspector Kvalix, I appreciate your concern for safety. It's admirable. But I assure you, Earth is perfectly safe for visiting species, provided they follow standard travel guidelines. Don't drink the tap water if your biology isn't compatible, wear sun protection if you're sensitive to UV radiation, and be aware that our gravity might be tiring if you're not used to it. Standard stuff. Standard, Kvalix repeated faintly. If it helps, I can send you our visitor information packets. We've got them translated into 86 galactic languages. Very comprehensive, include tips on local customs, recommended tourist destinations, emergency contact numbers, all that. You have tourist destinations. Of course, the Grand Canyon is very popular, so's the Great Barrier Reef. Humans love showing off our planet. We're very proud of Earth. Hammond smiled warmly. And honestly, after 5 years of galactic contact, I think we've proven we're not going to accidentally kill visiting species. We've had exactly 0 fatalities from environmental factors, 3 from bad decisions involving Earth wildlife, but that's because people didn't follow the "don't pet the polar bear" guidelines. Someone tried to pet a polar bear. Tourists do weird things, Hammond said philosophically. We put up more warning signs after that incident. Kvalix realized he was fighting a losing battle. The humans had been fine this entire time. Other species had visited and survived. His bureau had been operating on outdated information while the rest of the galaxy had moved on. 8,000 years of protocol, all of it useless. I need, he said finally, to make a lot of phone calls and file a lot of reports, and possibly retire early due to stress-induced medical conditions. Take your time, Hammond said kindly. And Inspector, if you ever want to visit Earth properly, without the massive suit, we'd be happy to have you. I think you'd really enjoy seeing what you've been missing. The call ended. Kavalix stood in the library, surrounded by processed tree matter containing information, while Jennifer sipped her toxic beverage and looked entirely too pleased with herself. "So," she said cheerfully, "feel like hitting the beach now? I've got an extra pair of shorts if you want to try the Earth experience properly." "Absolutely not." But 3 hours later, after consulting with his team, reviewing all available data, and experiencing what could only be described as a complete mental recalibration of his understanding of the universe, Kavalix found himself sitting in the sand outside his environmental suit for the first time in his life. The oxygen didn't corrode his exoskeleton. The gravity didn't crush him. The sun was bright but not deadly. The water was just water. And Jennifer had been right. It was a beautiful day. He filed his report to the bureau from a beach chair, drinking something Jennifer called a margarita through a specially designed straw that worked with his mandibles, while small human juveniles built structures out of sand nearby and seabirds called overhead. "Dear Bureau Leadership," he typed, "I am pleased to inform you that Terra, locally known as Earth, is not a Class 12 death world. It is a Class 6 garden world that has been in active contact with the galactic community for 5 years. Humans are the native species and are perfectly adapted to their environment. They are friendly, welcoming, and think our safety protocols are hilarious. I recommend immediate reclassification and suggest Bureau leadership visit Santa Barbara at their earliest convenience. The weather is pleasant and the locals make excellent beverages. Respectfully, Inspector Kavalix." He attached a picture of himself in the beach chair, mandibles wrapped around a margarita, with the ocean in the background and Jennifer photobombing with a peace sign. The Bureau's response was immediate and consisted entirely of confused screaming in text form. Kavalix turned off his communication device and settled back in his chair. He'd deal with the bureaucratic nightmare tomorrow. Today, he was going to enjoy the beach. Jennifer appeared with another margarita. "Feeling better? Feeling like my entire career was based on a filing error," Kavalix said. "But yes, better. That's the spirit." Jennifer clinked her glass against his. "Welcome to Earth, Inspector. Try not to get sunburned." That part actually is uncomfortable. In orbit above Earth, the rest of Kavalix's team was having a complete breakdown, trying to explain to Bureau headquarters that yes, they were all fine, no, they weren't experiencing mass hallucinations, and yes, one of their inspectors was currently on a beach without environmental protection drinking an alcoholic beverage with a local. Rix was attempting to file the incident reports, but kept getting stuck on form sections that didn't have options for "found civilization thriving in conditions previously thought to be lethal," or "humans think safety regulations are comedy material." Vremic had given up entirely and was reading human tourism brochures about something called Disneyland that promised magic and adventure, which sounded fake, but the pictures looked interesting. Pelix was in a video call with the Galactic Tourism Board, trying to understand how they had known about Earth this whole time and why they hadn't told anyone else, only to discover that they had told everyone else. The information had just been filed under pleasant vacation destinations instead of planets that shouldn't exist. The ship's computer, which had been programmed with thousands of safety protocols, had developed what could only be described as an electronic nervous tic, and kept suggesting they flee the planet immediately while simultaneously recommending tourist attractions based on crew species preferences. Down on the beach, a human child approached Kavalix with a bucket and shovel. "Want to help build a sandcastle?" the child asked, eyes bright with innocent enthusiasm. Kavalix looked at the child. The child looked back, waiting patiently for an answer, completely unaware that her species had just destroyed his entire worldview. "I don't know how to build a sandcastle," Kavalix admitted. "That's okay. I'll teach you. It's easy." The child plopped down in the sand next to him and started demonstrating. "You just gotta pack the sand real tight, see? And then you flip it over and bam! Tower! Jennifer watched from her chair, grinning. Fair warning, sandcastle building is extremely competitive around here. We take it very seriously. More seriously than living on a death world without protection? Kvalix asked. Oh, way more seriously. Last year's sandcastle competition almost started a neighborhood feud. Mrs. Patterson built a replica of the Taj Mahal, and everyone else got super jealous. Kvalix found himself building a sandcastle with a human child, while waves crashed nearby and seabirds called overhead, and the terrible, horrible, deadly sun of terror shone down on them with what could only be described as pleasant warmth. Somewhere in his mind, 8,000 years of bureau training was screaming. The rest of him was packing sand into a tower shape and discovering that the child was right. It was kind of satisfying when you flipped it over and it held its shape. That's good, the child said encouragingly. Now you need a moat. Every castle needs a moat. Why does it need a moat? To keep out the dragons, obviously. There are dragons on this planet? Jennifer laughed. No, Kvalix, no dragons. It's pretend. Kids have imaginations. Oh, he paused. What's an imagination? The child stared at him. You don't know what imagination is? Our species doesn't really do imagination. We have procedural thinking and protocol adherence. That sounds boring. The child wrinkled her nose. Imagination is when you think about stuff that isn't real, but could be cool if it was real, like dragons, or unicorns, or sandcastles that are actually real castles. Kvalix tried to process this. His species spent their lives following established patterns and documented procedures. The idea of thinking about things that weren't real seemed inefficient. But also, he had to admit, the child seemed really happy about her imaginary dragons. Okay, he said slowly. So the moat keeps out imaginary dragons? Exactly! The child beamed at him like he'd accomplished something significant. You're getting it. They built the moat together. It wasn't perfect, and it filled with water almost immediately because they were too close to the ocean, but the child didn't seem to mind. She just laughed and said they'd build the next castle higher up. Kvalix realized, with something approaching wonder, that this was fun. Building things that didn't need to be built, following no protocols except whatever made the construction more interesting. Creating something that would be destroyed by the next tide, and not caring, because the making of it was the point. Humans did this for recreation. No wonder they weren't afraid of their planet. They were too busy enjoying it. A wave came in, bigger than the others, and washed away half their castle. The child squealed with delight and immediately started rebuilding. Again! We'll make it better this time! It's just going to get destroyed again, Kvalix pointed out. Yeah, but that's part of the fun. Everything gets destroyed eventually. Might as well enjoy making it. Jennifer was watching them with a soft expression. Kids are smart, she said quietly. They get things adults forget sometimes. Kvalix thought about the Bureau, about 8,000 years of trying to keep everyone safe by avoiding anything dangerous. About protocols and procedures and forms filed in triplicate, about how they'd missed Earth because they were so busy protecting everyone from Deathworlds that they hadn't noticed when a Deathworld turned out to be someone's home. Your species, he said to Jennifer, is either the wisest in the galaxy or the most insane. I genuinely can't tell which. Why not both? Jennifer grinned. We contain multitudes. 3 days later, Inspector Kvalix stood in front of the full assembly of the Bureau, still slightly sunburned despite Jennifer's warnings, and delivered his report. Earth is not a Class 12 death world, he stated clearly. It is a Class 6 garden world inhabited by a species perfectly adapted to its conditions. Humans are oxygen-breathing, carbon-based life forms who have evolved on Terra and consider it not only habitable, but pleasant. They wear minimal clothing, not because they have advanced protective technology, but because they don't need protection. The planet that we have feared and quarantined for years has been hosting tourists, engaging in trade, and generally existing peacefully in the galactic community while we were all too busy filing forms to notice. The assembly was silent. Furthermore, Kavalix continued, I recommend the Bureau undergo a complete review of our classification system, our interagency communication protocols, and possibly our entire organizational structure, because this level of bureaucratic failure is unacceptable. The director of the Bureau, an elderly Krelthian who had been with the organization for 3,000 years, slowly stood up. Inspector Kavalix, she said carefully, are you suggesting that we've been wrong about environmental hazard assessment for 8,000 years? No, Director. I'm suggesting we've been right about environmental hazard assessment. Earth is hazardous to most species, but not to the ones who live there. And we failed to account for the possibility that a Class 12 death world could be someone's Class 6 garden world, depending on your perspective. Another long silence. Also, Kvalix added, humans make really good margaritas, and their beaches are excellent, and I think we should all go visit before we make any final decisions about reclassification, because clearly none of us understand what we're dealing with. The assembly erupted into chaos. Arguments broke out, people demanded evidence, others demanded his resignation, a few demanded vacation time. The director raised her hand for silence. Inspector Kavalix, this is the most irregular report in Bureau history. Earth is the most irregular planet in Bureau history. Fair point. The director sat back down. Very well. I'm authorizing a full investigative team to visit Terra. If your report is accurate, we'll begin reclassification procedures immediately. If you've gone insane from environmental exposure, we'll start medical treatment immediately. Either way, something needs to be done. Thank you, Director. However, the director fixed him with a stern look. You're leading the investigative team. If this is a mistake, it's your mistake to fix. Kvalix had expected this. Understood. I'll need a bigger ship, and someone who knows how to make margaritas. Trust me on that second one. 6 weeks later, the Bureau's investigative team descended on Santa Barbara with enough equipment to study every aspect of human existence. They ran tests, they took measurements, they interviewed locals. They filed approximately 6,000 reports. They also went to the beach, tried surfing, which was terrifying, attended a barbecue, which was delicious once they figured out which foods were compatible with their biologies, watched a human sporting event called baseball that made absolutely no sense, but was somehow entertaining anyway. And slowly, grudgingly, they began to understand. Earth wasn't a death world, it was just different. What killed other species was what humans were made of. Oxygen was their fuel, water was their substance, gravity was their normal, microorganisms were their partners in a complex biological dance, and the things that could kill humans, the things they actually worried about, were things most other species had never even considered dangers. You're telling me, Vremik said during one interview, that you consider sugar dangerous. The human nutritionist nodded seriously. Excessive sugar consumption can lead to diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, and a whole bunch of other problems. It's a major health concern. But you're fine with the corrosive oxygen. We need oxygen to live. We don't need sugar. Well, we kind of need some sugar for energy, but nowhere near the amount we actually consume. That's pure excess, and it will kill you eventually. Vremik made a note. Humans consider their own food more dangerous than their atmosphere. Further study required. The final report took 3 months to compile. It was, to put it mildly, comprehensive. The conclusion was simple. Earth needed to be reclassified from Class 12 Death World, quarantined, to Class 6 Garden World. Caution, higher gravity and oxygen levels than galactic average. Native species friendly but confusing. Bring sunscreen! The Bureau approved the reclassification unanimously, though several members requested extended leave after reading the full report because their worldviews had been thoroughly demolished. The new classification went into effect immediately. Warning markers were removed, charts were updated, Earth was officially welcomed into the galactic community as a normal planet instead of a nightmare sphere of death. Humans, when informed of this change, mostly shrugged and said cool before going back to their normal activities of jogging in shorts, swimming in the ocean, and building sandcastles while imagining dragons. Inspector Kvalix returned to Santa Barbara one more time, officially to deliver the new classification documents to Deputy Director Hammond, but really because Jennifer had invited him to her daughter's birthday party and he'd promised to teach the kids how to build Vrixian-style sand sculptures. The party was in a park, dozens of human children running around screaming with joy, parents trying to keep order, and someone had brought a cake that was probably violating several health codes but smelled amazing. Megan, the birthday girl, ran up to him wearing shorts and a t-shirt with something called a unicorn on it. "Inspector K, you came! Did you bring the special sand tools?" "I brought the special sand tools," Kvalix confirmed, holding up his bag of implements. "Ready to build something amazing?" "Yes." They spent 3 hours building elaborate sand sculptures, while other children joined in, asking questions about alien planets and whether Kvalix could breathe fire. He could not. And if his species had any cool superpowers, bureaucratic efficiency didn't count, apparently. Jennifer brought him a margarita at one point. "You've come a long way from that first day in full environmental gear. I've learned that sometimes the deadliest-looking things are actually perfectly safe," Kvalix said. "And sometimes the safest-looking things can kill you if you're not careful. Perspective matters." "Deep thoughts for a birthday party," Jennifer laughed. "Your daughter asked if I could breathe fire. That's a fairly deep question if you think about it." "Fair point." As the sun set over Santa Barbara, painting the sky in colors that would have seemed artificial on any other planet, but were apparently normal on Earth, Kvalix sat in the grass surrounded by human children and their sand sculptures, drinking a margarita and thinking about how strange the universe was. Earth wasn't a death world. It was home to billions of beings who had evolved to thrive in conditions that would kill most other species. And they didn't think they were special. They just thought they were normal, which Kvalix supposed they were. Normal was always relative. Megan came over and sat next to him, tired from playing. "Did you have fun today?" "I did," Kvalix said honestly. "Thank you for inviting me." "You're welcome. You're pretty cool for a grown-up. And for an alien, you're pretty cool too. For a human who lives on a death world. It's not a death world, silly. It's Earth." "Right, sorry. Earth." Megan leaned against him comfortably, the casual trust of a child who had grown up in a world where the air didn't try to kill her and strangers were just friends she hadn't met yet. "When I grow up, I want to visit other planets, see what they're like. They're probably very boring compared to Earth," Kvalix warned. "Less weather, less danger, less everything, really. That's okay. Boring can be fun sometimes too. Mum says variety is the spice of life. Your mum is very wise. She also says you're good at paperwork, which she thinks is a superpower." Kvalix's mandibles clicked with amusement. "Bureaucracy saves lives when it works properly, which is about 50% of the time. That's a pretty bad success rate. Welcome to government work, kid." They sat together watching the sunset, a Vrixian inspector and a human child, on a planet that had been classified as uninhabitable but turned out to be paradise, depending on who you asked. Somewhere in space, the Bureau was still processing the reclassification paperwork. It would take approximately 6 more months, because someone had filed it in the wrong color ink and it needed to be redone entirely. But here, now, on this beach in Santa Barbara, none of that mattered. The universe was vast and strange and full of bureaucracy. But it was also full of margaritas and sandcastles and kids who believed in dragons. And really, Kvalix thought, Wasn't that what made it all worthwhile? Jennifer called everyone over for cake. The children rushed toward the pavilion, Megan included, leaving Kvalix alone for a moment. He looked out at the ocean, the universal solvent, watching waves crash against the shore with casual indifference to the fact that they could theoretically dissolve organic matter given enough time. He thought about Rick Palmerton, jogging in shorts, about the juvenile with the crab, about Deputy Director Hammond and his tourism packets, about Jennifer Ashworth and her patient explanations of how not dying worked. And he thought about the 8,000 years of Bureau protocol that had all been upended by one simple fact. Perspective matters. Earth wasn't trying to kill anyone. It was just being itself. The same way every planet was just being itself. Some of them happened to be more themselves than others, and Earth was extremely itself. But that didn't make it wrong or evil or deadly. It just made it Earth. And humans were just humans, not superheroes, not technological marvels, not beings with special adaptations. Just people who had evolved here, lived here, loved here, and thought that jogging in shorts on a sunny day was exactly the right amount of protection needed for a pleasant afternoon. They were right, it turned out. The universe was bigger and stranger than Kvalix had ever imagined. And somewhere out there, probably at this very moment, another species was living on a planet that other species would consider uninhabitable, wearing whatever they considered normal clothing, and thinking their neighbors were weird for needing environmental suits. The galaxy was full of Deathworlds that were really just someone's home, and that, Kvalix decided, was beautiful. Even if it meant rewriting 8,000 years of bureaucratic protocol, especially because it meant rewriting 8,000 years of bureaucratic protocol. "Inspector K!" Megan called from the pavilion. "Come get cake before it's all gone." Kvalix stood up, brushed sand off his carapace, and walked toward the pavilion where humans in shorts were cutting cake and singing birthday songs and celebrating another year of successfully not dying on their perfectly normal planet. He had forms to file, reports to write, protocols to update. But right now, there was cake. Priorities, he had learned, were all about perspective. And from his perspective, cake was definitely more important than paperwork. For now, at least. The paperwork would still be there tomorrow, probably filed in the wrong color ink, requiring 17 additional forms to correct. But the cake was now. Inspector Kvalix ate chocolate cake on Earth, surrounded by humans in casual clothing, under a star that was just bright enough to be pleasant instead of deadly, and decided that maybe, just maybe, the universe made sense after all, just not in the way he'd expected. But that was okay. Expectations, like classifications, were meant to be revised when new evidence presented itself, and the evidence said, Earth was fine, humans were fine, everything was fine, except for the paperwork. The paperwork was definitely not fine, but that, as they say, was a problem for Monday.